humor, so I apologize.
Will you do this for me?
I literally do not know how to follow such an act. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Alex McCullough. Andrew and I first met in the jungles of Vietnam in 1967. That's not true. I made it up. I've shared a room with Andrew from the time he came home from the hospital until he went away to college, which is a very long time. And when he and Sarah asked me to be the best man at their wedding, I was excited and I was very honored, but shortly thereafter it dawned on me that I would, in fact, have to give a speech. And so I started thinking about all the speeches that I've heard best men give throughout the years. And I cannot recall any great ones, and I don't really recall many good ones. The ones that I remember are the absolutely god-awful, embarrassingly bad ones. And so I panicked, I freaked out because I didn't think that I was going to be up to this task. And so I turned to the eternal font of wisdom that is the internet. And the internet told me that there are 3 keys to a good best man speech. First, you talk a little bit about your early years with the groom, and then you say something kind or nice or funny about the bride, and then you bring it all home with some kind of sagely wisdom about the married life. So first of all, the early years with the groom. Unfortunately, the vast majority of my early years with Andrew are blocked out by the post-traumatic stress disorder that comes from living with him. And then I racked my brain thinking, well, of the stories that I remember, which ones could I actually tell at a dinner event? Because many of them are grossly inappropriate, such as the Bannister incident of 1995, or the Sean Young shower contingency of 2005. Others are bold-faced, out-and-out, outrageous lies, like his claim to be the GCL all-time receiving yards leader and offensive lineman, which cannot be confirmed, nor can it be denied, unfortunately. But there is one theme that runs through every story that I remember about Andrew from growing up with him, and that is that he is, was, and always has been the consummate dude. Everything about him has reeked of testosterone, figuratively and very, very literally. And I think that's where we segue into the second part of the speech, saying something kind about Sarah. Not because she reeks of testosterone, that's not what I was getting at all. But what I would like to say that is kind about Sarah, and it came immediately to mind, there was no hesitation about it, was that Sarah is primarily responsible for taking the dude that I grew up with and helping to make him the man that we always knew that he could become. In fact, she even has him in school, point number 1, and point number 2, taking it seriously. Which is an absolutely incredible, positively Sisyphean feat. When you consider the fact that the Wagnerian hordes of Valkyries that are the McCullough and Collins women have been trying to do that for like 22 years now and never succeeded. And I think the reason why Sarah has failed, where Sarah has succeeded, where so many, many others have failed, is because while we did everything we could to force Andrew to capitalize on his potential, Sarah has a way of doing it simply by being the best person she can be and demanding that Andrew be worthy of her. Just not by yelling at him, not by screaming at him, just by being who she is. It makes it very clear to Andrew that he needs to be, again, the man that we always knew that he would become. So I'd like to take this opportunity to genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, thank Sarah Langford, Sarah McCullough, for taking this dude and making him a great man. And so finally, in terms of giving some kind of sagely advice about marriage, it's patently absurd because not only am I not married, but I'm actively moving towards a life in which I will never be married. And so I'm left with nothing to do but to point to other people around me and around, more importantly, around Andrew and Sarah, who are married and are an incredible witness to the beauty of that vocation. I can always point to the love and tender care that Mr. and Mrs. Langford have for each other. I can always point to the incredible patience that my mother has shown 35 years of marriage. I love you, man. And I can always point to the incredible, absolutely beautiful, uxorious devotion that my father has had for my mother for quote-unquote 30-plus tedious years. And so even though I can't tell you two anything personally from my own experience about what it means to be married, I can point to the people around you and say, that's what marriage is. And finally, if you'll permit me to play the seminarian card so shamelessly, I can point towards the words that St. Paul gives to husbands and wives in one of his letters when he says, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ so loved the church," which is a pretty simple statement until you unpack it and realize that Christ died for the church. And marriage, in part, is learning to die to yourself every day in order to live for another and to live for the children that your love brings into the world. And so I believe that you two are fully capable of living lives selflessly, not about you, but for the person that you stood in front of God and man and swore to love till death do you part today. So if everyone would please raise your glasses to Andrew and Sarah, to many happy years.
Cheers. Cheers.